All right, today we're going to dive into the absolutely wild 500-year story of money in El Salvador. I mean, it's a journey that has it all. You've got natural wealth, colonial chaos, a huge sense of national pride, and then this incredible leap right into the digital future. I mean, it sounds like something out of a fairy tale, doesn't it? But what if I told you that for the people who first lived in the land we now call El Salvador, it was just reality? And that right there is where this whole incredible story kicks off. So let's kick things off by going way back. I'm talking pre-Columbian era to the ancient chiefdoms of Cuscatlan. See, long before anyone was thinking about coins or paper money, value was something you could actually touch, something organic. It literally grew on trees. And what's really fascinating is how organized this all was. This wasn't just simple trading, like, I'll give you this for that. No, they had this zontal, which was a standard unit. It was exactly 400 cacao beans. Just think about that. Gathering 400 of those beans meant you had real wealth. That was a fortune you could use to buy precious goods, or even, slaves. And you want to know how you can tell just how valuable these beans were? Well, the moment you have something valuable, you get people trying to fake it. Counterfeiters would actually empty the cacao shells and fill them back up with mud. It just goes to show you the temptation to cheat the system is as old as money itself. The stakes were already high even back then. Okay, so then the Spanish arrive, and boom, the entire idea of money just gets completely flipped on its head. That organic, natural system of cacao, it gets replaced by something hard, something metallic, and something that was often forced upon people. So what you ended up with was basically two economies running side by side. On the one hand, you had the official coin, the Spanish silver real. That was the standard for the entire empire, right? But there wasn't a lot of it around. So in day-to-day life, people used these things called macacos, which were just these crudely hammered coins, and even private tokens from big farms called fichas. It was, to put it mildly, a really fragmented and chaotic way to handle money. All right, so after centuries of all that monetary chaos, El Salvador is finally independent. And now it needs a symbol, something to represent unity and its own economic power. And that brings us to the birth of a true national icon. Now, this journey to one single currency, it was definitely a process. It wasn't like flipping a switch. First, in 1892, the Colón is born. But for decades after that, different private banks were still printing their own Colón banknotes. Can you imagine how confusing that must have been? So the real game changer comes in 1934. That's when the Central Reserve Bank is created, and it finally unifies the currency. One single, official money for the whole country. And what followed was this pretty remarkable era of stability. For almost 70 years, the exchange rate was locked in, 2.5 colons for every $1. Just think about that. That one simple number became the bedrock of their economy. It was a symbol of reliability, of predictability. Really, it was the golden age for the nation's currency. But you know how it is with golden ages. They don't last forever. There were some serious economic and political storms gathering on the horizon, and these storms were about to force a really dramatic farewell to the country's beloved currency. It was really like a perfect storm of three major forces that sealed the Colón's fate. First, you have the devastating armed conflict in the 1980s, which just crippled the economy. That, in turn, led to runaway inflation, making every colón in your pocket worth less and less. And then, and this is so important, you have this massive wave of US dollars being sent home by Salvadorans abroad. These remittances, this green tide, basically started to unofficially dollarize the economy from the ground up. And then it happened. On January 1st, 2001, New Year's Day, it was made official. The Colón, with its colorful banknotes, this national icon that had been around for more than 100 years, was officially retired. You have to understand, for so many Salvadorans, this wasn't just some dry economic policy change. It felt like they were losing a real piece of their national history. Now, a new economic reality set in. The US dollar became the official currency. The thinking behind it was pretty pragmatic, right? The idea was that it would stabilize prices, bring in foreign investment, and get rid of the risk of the currency's value just collapsing. It was a trade-off, really. A calculated gamble to get economic stability, but it came with a huge cost, giving up control over your own money. So just when the whole world thought El Salvador's money story had kind of settled down into this new normal, the country goes and makes headlines all over again. And this time, it's with one of the boldest, most talked about economic experiments of the 21st century. And that brings us to Bitcoin. In 2021, El Salvador becomes the first country on Earth to make Bitcoin legal tender. And wow, the debate around this is intense. On one side, you have the supporters who see it as this revolutionary tool. They say it could be a game changer for a country that relies so heavily on remittances, maybe cutting out fees and helping people who don't have bank accounts. But then, on the other side, the critics point to the wild price swings, the high volatility, and the huge technical and educational hurdles for the average person. It is, without a doubt, a high-risk, high-reward bet on the future of money itself. So when you step back and look at the whole picture, from cacao beans to digital code, it's just an incredible journey. And it tells you so much more than just a story about economics. It's really a mirror, reflecting a nation's history, its struggles, and this amazing willingness to constantly experiment and look towards the future. I mean, when you trace this entire 500-year story, you go from the Spanish imposing their silver coins to a central bank creating a symbol of national unity, to a modern government adopting a global decentralized currency. It really makes you stop and ask a pretty fundamental question, doesn't it? And that, I think, is the ultimate answer. Throughout its entire history, money in El Salvador has been both. It's been used to control people, and it's been used to forge a national identity. It's been the source of economic pain, and it's been seen as the key to a prosperous future. It is a story of constant tension, and a story that is absolutely still being written today.